Notre Dame guys, come on, you got to stop complaining here. I understand the seniors voted to not play in a bowl game, but it's just a bad look. It's a bad optic for everybody involved. Welcome back, everyone. This is Bando's Breakdowns, episode 70. My name is Zain Bando. Thank you so much for joining me. Middle of December now, or we're getting closer and closer to the middle of December. Hope you all are doing really, really well. Just going into this week, we're getting closer and closer to the holiday season at large. So excited to preview some stuff with you guys, talk about some stuff, recap a crazy weekend in the world of college football and just in the world of sports. Period. It's been a fun, festive week based on the whatever teams you decide to root for and all that. So excited to talk about some stuff with you guys here this afternoon on a Friday that at least in my area is going to get a little bit colder and have an oodle amount, if you will, of snow moving forward. So before we get into anything, though, just wanted to go over a few quick reminders. For the final time ever, I'm sure you guys have gotten the memo by now, that is Bando's Breakdowns for the final time is presented by Playback. You won't hear the traditional ad read because, unfortunately, the platform is going away. But shout out to Playback for all they did to sponsor the show, all the great memories that I had on the platform, that all my colleagues had on the platform. It was a really fun time and just overall a very fun experience. Just to be able to watch live games amongst ourselves as a full crew. It was really fun. And I'm looking forward to hopefully doing something similar in the future. But for now, this will be the final episode ever that will be presented by Playback. And it is the second to last episode of the calendar year. As this, again, is episode 70. So just something I'd start off with by saying, listen to Bando's Breakdowns wherever you get your podcast. That's Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Acast, and so much more. Very important you guys subscribe, as it tells me that I'm doing a good job putting these shows together. And it also tells me that you are paying attention. You are following the pulse of what's going on in my sports ecosystem, if you will. And it also tells me that you're just staying up to date. You're refreshing your RSS feed. You're doing all that stuff. Would be very much appreciated if you guys did so as well. A few other reminders before we get started. YouTube.com/ETB Network is where you can subscribe to watch the video-only version of this show. Again, a little over 1,000 subscribers now. Would be greatly appreciated if you guys check this out. All that we're doing, turn on post notifications that we don't miss a single episode of this show or of Forever Power 5 or of Football Forecasts, which, by the way, is a programming note. Football Forecast and Forever Power 5 are going to be the only two shows that will continue through the holiday season. So just something to bear in mind there as well. And it would be greatly appreciated if you guys subscribe to the channel. All right, that's going to do it for some messages that are out of the way now. And let's get into the show. So without further ado, let's do that. All right, Zan's overview to start now. A shorter episode this week, but we're going to be spending a lot of time talking about one particular topic, and that is the brand new, officially finalized college football playoff that came out this past Sunday. We will also preview Army versus Navy, give you a preview and pick for that game as it is one of the standalone college football games of the year. We'll also get into recapping UFC 323, previewing UFC Vegas 112, discussing the Bears loss to the Packers, the Bears playing the Browns, and anything else that we might have time for in the 30 minutes that we usually spend. So let's do that. All right. Top 12 in the college football playoff. Let's go over who made the field this past Sunday. So let's go ahead and do that. And let's go through the chaos that was the CFP. So here we go. So here's the bracket. So let's go through in game order here. So Oklahoma will be taking on Alabama. These are the first round games. Oregon will be taking on JMU. Ole Miss will be taking on Tulane, and Texas A&M will be taking on Miami. So, of course, I know what you're thinking. Zain, what happened to Notre Dame? Well, I will tell you what happened to Notre Dame. Notre Dame was left out of the college football playoff field despite winning 10 games in a row. It started 0-2 with losses to Miami, who I just mentioned a second ago, and Texas A&M, who also made who's going to be playing Miami, of course. So the two teams that beat Notre Dame are going to be playing each other in the first round. So let's talk about this from an optics standpoint for just a second. And we'll get more into Notre Dame in a little bit here on the rest of the show as it progresses. But let's talk about Notre Dame, and let's talk about the controversy that has ensued with Notre Dame, because this isn't just the team that missed the playoff. This is a team that took a drastic measure in kind of taking a stand on what they feel is appropriate, which a lot of people don't agree with. So Notre Dame went 10-2, and they were denied a trip to the college football playoff, and instead declined a bowl invite to play in the Pop-Tarts Bowl, where of course the winner gets a giant Pop-Tart um, uh, as their postseason bowl game. So Notre Dame believes that for whatever reason they were screw jobs. So let's talk about it. So I personally think the Notre Dame being left out is, I think there's two sides to every argument. I do. So let's talk about the side where Notre Dame deserved to be left out of the playoffs. So let's talk about that. So Notre Dame obviously won 10 games in a row. Its only good resume win was against USC, which USC missed the playoff entirely. But on the contrary to that, they dominated every team they played in that 10-game winning streak that they had. So there's that side of the coin. The other side of the coin is the college football playoff committee decided at the last minute, okay, we're going to count head-to-head games as part of why Notre Dame should be left out. So the whole debate was Notre Dame, should they get in despite them losing to Miami in the first game of the season? That's number one. And should they get in over Alabama, who was a 9-3 team that was technically not punished for losing its conference title game to Georgia? So that was the major question going into this whole thing. And this is a controversial opinion, but I actually think what the committee did was they caved in. They're like, we made a mistake this entire process of, putting these teams together, and we're going to fix this. And how we're going to fix it is we're going to give Miami what they deserve, which is awarding them for a head-to-head matchup against Notre Dame in such a way to where they rewarded Miami for beating Notre Dame. So that part to me makes sense. The other part, though, that doesn't make sense to me is Notre Dame literally did what they were tasked to do, which was win out and hope to make the playoff, which is what it looked like was going to happen. It looked like they were going to get in. But Alabama at 9-3 became the first 9-3 team ever to qualify for the CFP, which I think ruins the standard. I really do. And I understand it's 4 ranked wins, right? I completely get it. They won 4 ranked games this year. Notre Dame only won one of them. I get it. And I get that they play in the toughest conference, but why was it that the standard 2 years ago was, okay, if you have 2 losses or fewer, you're in the playoff, essentially. And if you have more than that, you're out automatically. I don't know what changed. I don't know if this is brand bias. I don't know what this is. But to me, something is unfair, because I think Notre Dame was just as deserving as Miami was. I think Notre Dame was just as deserving as A&M was. And I think, quite frankly, that Notre Dame should be rewarded for having one more win than Alabama did. And Alabama losing the SEC championship game and getting blown out. I mean, I don't know what else you want. Like, did they, like, in that SEC championship game, did they look like a playoff quality team? I'm not so sure. Georgia kind of manhandled them. And Notre Dame didn't have a conference championship game to play in. So they're sitting there thinking, okay, the committee's used the same standard every week to put us in our favor here. And all of a sudden, now they're going to backtrack. They're going to say, oh no, this can't happen. And I really don't know what to say other than the fact that I completely understand both sides of the argument. What I can tell you though is rewarding 9-3 teams for going to the playoff, I think needs to be addressed. I do. And again, I understand Alabama 4 ranked wins, but 3 losses is 3 losses. Okay. And I understand you get the body of work argument. I am on the belief that you got to look at the record, man. It's as simple as that. 9-3 is 9-3, and you can't be telling these teams that have won double-digit games that they're not going to get in, and they're going to be punished for things they can't control themselves. So, more on this later, but I had to go on a rant because I think I understand Notre Dame's position for getting screwed, but at the same time, had Notre Dame beaten either of the teams that are in the playoff right now and finished 11-1, we wouldn't be having this discussion. So the standards are the standards. Are they wrong per se? Potentially, sure. Yeah. Yeah, they very well could be wrong. And I very well could be wrong by giving you this argument. But what I can tell you is college football parity couldn't be crazier right now. And this is another example of it. So speaking of the top 12, let's go through my playoff predictions for the top 12 here. So let's do that. Let's do that. According to ESPN, here we go. Let's do that. All right. Let's go into here. And let's go to, where did it go? Let's go over here. Here we go. Load it up fine. Fine. Okay. As we pull up the bracket here we go. And by the way, for those of you who don't know, the ESPN bracket challenge for the CFP is out. Right now, you can play it. Here we go. Here it is. Okay, I already submitted my bracket. You can submit 2 of them. But I think it's going to be Oregon over James Madison in the first round, Alabama over Oklahoma, Ole Miss over Tulane, A&M over Miami on one side of the bracket, and then moving over to the Capital One Orange Bowl, I like Texas Tech over Oregon. I like Indiana over Alabama in the Rose Bowl. And I like Ole Miss over Georgia in the Sugar Bowl, and I like Ohio State over A&M in the Cotton Bowl Classic. Then in the semifinals, I love a rematch, Indiana versus Ohio State, and I think Ohio State wins the game in the national championship. So those are my championship picks, if you will, for the CFP, and I think that's a great place to end it there. Let's talk about Navy versus Army. It's a hard-hitting game, as it always is every year. Navy minus 3.5, over under 38.5. Let's go over a brief for people who need it, because I certainly need it. So let's go through this together. Okay, this is according to, here we go. This is according to NBC Sports. Let's take a look. Eric Fratton put this together. Okay. There we go. So let's take a look here. So Army's offense is an extensive run-heavy operation, leading the nation in both standard downs run rate, 90.2%, and passing downs run rate, 72.3%, while operating at one of the slowest tempos in college football at 30.4 seconds per snap. The unit struggles to create big plays, ranking bottom 5 nationally in marginal explosiveness and yards per successful play. Not great. Navy is sporting a commendable 9-2 record despite their second order win total, suggesting closer to 7 wins, better known as 7.3. The midshipmen pair one of the nation's most efficient rushing attacks, ranked top 10 in rushing success rate, yards per rush, and EPA per rush, with a shockingly potent downfield passing game that leads the country, averaging 14.2 adjusted net yards per attempt. Their defense remains volatile but opportunistic, giving up yards yet creating timely stops and allowing Navy to win shootouts and low possession grinders alike. Even through narrow escapes against Air Force, Temple, and USF, Navy consistently maximizes scoring opportunities and responds with the scores of plays when games tighten. The result is a team whose profile blends old school option DNA with new era efficiency and explosiveness, making them a top flight AAC program despite some statistical overperformance. With that said, I like Navy to cover this number -3.5. I think everything that we just went through tells me that Navy's offense is going to be able to outsmart Army's defense, and Army defense that's a little bit flat. And of course, Navy is playing for a 10-win season. Over under being 38.5 is not a surprise, given that this is a game where a lot of punts, field goals, and fumbles are opportunistic. So I think Navy could cover this number easily. So I like Navy and I like the unders. That's my pick on that game for Navy Army, as I did a year ago as well. We also previewed that game. All right, moving on. Bears and the Packers. The Bears fall in Green Bay. First loss in a really long time. This was a great game for the Bears. I really like this game because in the second half they were resilient. They kept the Packers at bay. The big issue, though, was at the end of the game, the clock management by Ben Johnson, especially the fourth down. Not great execution there, but I called it. I said the Packers were the better team in this matchup. I said they would eke out a win, and I also said that that it wasn't going to be easy for Caleb Williams to win the game. And Caleb Williams had DJ Moore in the flat that could have been a first down, but instead it was intercepted. The Packers won the game, and now the Bears have to move on, and they're in a must-win situation as they currently sit as the number 7 overall seed in the NFC. Let's preview the game now. Bears and the Browns. Browns with Shedeur Sanders. It looks like he's going to start for the remainder of the season. It's really cold at Soldier Field going into this week. The wind chill is going to be in the negatives. So if you're going, bundle up. And if not, please stay inside. But I like the Bears to win this game. I like it to be a low-scoring defensive struggle. I think Shedeur Sanders hasn't played a defense that's as imposing as the Bears, and they usually try to make a lot of big-time plays down the stretch late when you least expect it. So give me the Bears in this game, and I also like the under in this game. I think it's going to be a 17-10, 20-13 type of game. I could see the under easily hitting here, and I think Caleb Williams is efficient enough to where as long as he throws a touchdown or so and maybe 170 plus yards, the Bears will have a chance to win the game as well. So give me the Bears to win the game, and I love the under. And regardless of what the under is, I think the under hits on the game. All right, let's talk some UFC now. UFC 323. We have 2 new champions. Joshua Van becomes the new UFC flyweight champion. And we also had Peter Yan becoming the new UFC bantamweight champion of the world over Merab Dvalishvili in their rematch. All right, let's briefly go over this. So Joshua Van, obviously his win over Pantoja, a freak accident. It's now come out that it was an elbow injury. For Pantoja, it was initially his shoulder, which confused everyone in a half in the MMA community. People were very confused by this. But it was one of those where I thought that, Van, I mean, this is no disrespect. I'm happy for him. He won the belt, but wasn't a big enough sample size to tell me that he was going to go in or that he's going to go in and win a rematch if and when they do rematch. So I think in all likelihood, even though it was unfortunate, Van got really lucky that the fight went as easily as it did. Now he's going to prepare for more than likely Tatsuro Taira because the UFC is not going to wait that long for Pantoja to come back. So I think it's for Van versus Tyra to happen first. And then in regards to Peter Yan, I mean, it's just a great fight. He overwhelmed him, used his wrestling, used his sambo kickboxing, frustrated Dvalishvili, hurt him a lot. It was a great fight. I think a trilogy would be phenomenal. And I think a trilogy is what's meant to happen next for those two, because those two are the best bantamweights in the world. And then you go from there. Umar Nurmagomedov could be a contender again. Sean O'Malley, if he beats Song Yadong at the end of the or at the beginning of 2025, he could be a contender again. So I think there's a lot of directions bantamweight could go, but I think this changing of the guard in the UFC is really interesting, and this was the latest example of that as well. And right now we're going into a year where there's no champion that successfully defended their title at least once, unless you want to count Max Holloway as the BMF. So there's that as well. So it's very interesting. I think it'll be interesting to see where these two divisions go. And I thought overall UFC 323 was a decent show. I went 6-7 and 1 on the card, losing the main and co-main event to prevent me from finishing above 500. But let's hope we do a little bit better. The final UFC event of the year, UFC Vegas 112 at the Apex, the final event that will ever enter on ESPN. Main event, Brandon Royval, Manel Kape. Let's go through this card if we can here. All right, 7 p.m. Eastern for the 7 p.m. Eastern main card. 7 p.m. Eastern prelims, my bad. 10 Eastern main card. Let's take a look at the main event. Brandon Royval, 17-8 versus Manel Kape, 21-7, capping a 13-fight card from the Apex. Let's take a look at how these two stack up here. And for those who want full predictions on the card, you can go check out the newest edition of the MMA Outsiders that dropped yesterday with Jack Gold and myself. It's everywhere: YouTube, Playback, Kick, Twitch, etc., etc. All right, Royval 3-2 in his last 5. Kape is 4-1. According to Tapology, Kape is the favorite at -250. Brandon Royval, slight underdog at +175. Who does the Tapology community like this weekend? 56% of them are for Brandon Royval, and 44% of them are for Manel Kape out of 2,383 predictions. So the Tapology community is really on the more experienced Royval, sitting at 33 years old out of Littleton, Colorado. And of course, Kape is fighting out of Las Vegas, Nevada by way of Portugal. I think it's a great fight. I think this is a chance to go 5 rounds. I think it's an action-packed, high-paced affair, but I think Brandon Royval is just a little bit better. He'll win a decision, and I think he's going to weather Kape's early storm. I think Kape's going to go in there and try to knock him out. The question is going to be, can Royval survive, and can he make the fight his fight? If he lets Kape come to him and he tries to wrestle Kape, it will be very interesting. But I think Royval has a chance to really do some damage and make things interesting. He may even win by TKO, but I think the more conservative approach here is Brandon Royval by decision. So that'll cap a 13-fight card. Don't miss it. Last UFC event of the year. And then it's a 5-6 week break for the UFC starting next week. So stay tuned for that as well. And stay tuned for the hiatus to come, as I'm sure you guys will want to do some different things to pass the time on Saturday nights. But nonetheless, to round out the show, before getting into a very special guest exclusive interview, let's run through a few more things here. one thing I saw, Francis Ngannou went on Ariel Helwani's show Wednesday to talk about what's next for him. And a part of the interview that I wanted to highlight was him responding to Dana White. Dana White went on the Flagrant podcast with Andrew Schultz a couple weeks ago and told a very disturbing story about Francis Ngannou not what do you call it? Not following, I guess, orders from UFC brass, and it was so bad that it got to the point where allegedly Francis grabbed both Dana White and then separately Hunter Campbell physically to try to restrain them during a contract dispute. Um, and that's what Dana claimed. Francis Ngannou didn't have much to say about it, but I thought it was interesting because, um, usually, sports commissioners and owners and stuff, they don't usually come out and say that they had a physical spat with a player, but that's exactly what happened, or in this case, a fighter rather, but that's exactly what happened between Dana and Francis, according to Dana. Francis didn't want to address it, which leads me to believe either it did happen and Francis doesn't want to admit it, or it didn't happen and it became viral for no reason. Nonetheless, a really bad look on both sides. And I don't think a Francis UFC return is in the cards, but never say never. So there's that. And then Zain Zinger, Notre Dame guys, come on, you got to stop complaining here. I understand the seniors voted to not play in a bowl game, but it's just a bad look. It's a bad optic for everybody involved. You lose money in this process. You lose ratings. You lose fan support. I mean, this whole thing could not have been more of a mess. And I think Notre Dame fans need to calm down, realize that they were in the wrong for doing this. And I think you got to stop complaining, man. It is what it is. It's on your own volition. You lost 2 games and you chose not to play in a bowl game. That's simply on you. And I think Notre Dame fans need to stop blaming other parties, looking at you, athletic director, for calling out the ACC the way that you did. I think that was a bad look. And I think overall, it's one of those instances where Notre Dame needs to do better, and they need to remember that you know this is more than just about them. This is the whole sport at large, and this is a bad reflection on not just them, but the current state of college football, which I think is in a very kind of fragile place unless things get fixed. So I think there's going to be a lot more unanswered questions than anything, and they're going to use this as a branding tool to say, "Oh, we got screwed, and 2026 is our year." So if that's what they wanted out of it, they got what they wanted, but nonetheless, though, didn't like that perspective from Notre Dame. All right. So now we're getting to that point in the show where we are transitioning to the Bando's Breakdowns exclusive section of this. So happy to be joined by Bo Bassett. Bo Bassett is a Virginia Tech wrestling commit, #1 commit in the nation. Was really, really, really excited to talk to him. Gave me a lot of insightful stuff about about just his career overall, what's going to be happening with him as he enters college. Super, super high level kid for his age. Well, now he's certainly an adult, but super high level, young professional, if you will, entering the college ranks. For a program that I think is on the rise in a lot of different sports, and wrestling is one of them. So stay tuned. That interview is coming up momentarily, and then we will be right back to cap off the end of the show. But until then, without further ado, here is the interview with Virginia Tech commit and phenom, if you will, Bo Bassett of Pennsylvania himself. So hope you enjoyed, and we'll catch you guys in a little bit. Welcome. This is the Bando's Breakdown exclusive. I'm happy to be joined by Bo Bassett today. Bo, how are you?
I'm doing great. I'm excited to be on, excited to talk with you, but today's been great. We got to work out at 5 a.m., so we're rolling.
Absolutely, man. Well, it's good to see you, and I know it's been a crazy whirlwind of the last couple months for you, so I don't want to take up too much of your time. First question that I have for you is, how was your first RAF experience, and how did it come about?
Yeah, it was pretty awesome. I have never wrestled at such a blown up stage. They do an amazing job of making wrestling mainstream and making it like a professional sport. So it was really awesome to experience that alongside some legends, fighting legends, wrestling legends. It was really cool to be alongside both of those. And I think it all just came about from wrestling really hard my whole life and challenging myself, chasing lions, trying to chase big opportunities, and picking up the phone when they called, and getting a match with Darian Caldwell, and it was a pretty awesome experience. Great to wrestle a guy like Darian, and he's done a lot of things that I want to do someday. An NCAA champion, and he's a Bellator champion as well. So awesome to compete against people of such high caliber.
For sure. And just given the amount of attention that your performance got, just kind of what does it all mean to you to sort of know that you're sort of starting to be recognized in both a global stage, but not just in the wrestling community, but also the combat sports community as well?
It's pretty awesome. I always had really high goals and dreams, and I didn't know where it would take me. But throughout the process and the journey, it's been awesome to get the recognition for wrestling, but also just trying to grow the sport as well, and kind of tapping into combat sports and knowing that there's a bigger world than just wrestling. I think when I first started, I didn't really know outside of the world of wrestling, but now I've been exposed to some other sides, and it's been awesome to try to reach out and connect a bridge there. And I think wrestling's doing a great job with that. RAF is really helping us connect, and it's going to be exciting to keep moving forward, see where God takes me, and just keep working extremely hard.
Yeah, for sure. And just kind of piggybacking alongside that as well. How excited are you to compete at Virginia Tech? Obviously, it was a really, really big deal. And you committed, and I know that was a journey for you within itself. So, can you just kind of talk about just overall the commitment experience and just kind of how you're feeling about things at the moment?
Yeah, absolutely. So the recruiting process was a big one. It took a long time. Went through it twice, so that was a little bit different. And it was definitely an exciting process. There was a lot going on though, especially at the beginning. You have to receive a lot of calls and texts, and you have to get back to those people. And so I think it was a lot of stress at first, but I think now I'm feeling super relieved that it's over. I know that I'm in the best place that I can be for myself, for my family, and for my future. And so we're really excited to join forces here with Virginia Tech. They're an amazing program as far as wrestling goes. They're amazing people. And I'm excited to see where we can take this. I know we have an amazing team. We've got an awesome coaching staff, a bunch of awesome teammates that I'm going to be joining, and just really excited for the opportunity to compete close to home and at a place that I feel as though is home for the next 5 to 10 to however many years. So really excited to go down there. And I think that recruiting has taught me a lot of good lessons, and excited to be done with it.
What would you say was it's the biggest selling point for you to know, like, okay, Virginia Tech is home for me, and this is where I see myself thriving the most in what you want to do.
Yeah, I think Virginia Tech, they offer a lot. They offer everything that they do on the wrestling side of things, which is great. The practice partners, the RTC, the coaching. But I think what they also offer is it's close to home for one. Right, my parents will be able to be at every home duel in my family, and I'm excited about that. I can come home when I need to, which is really nice. I think another thing that they do exceptionally well is they're great people. They have a strong faith, and so that was really important to me. I want to go somewhere where it feels like family, and I want to go somewhere where I can better my faith. And I know that's a place that I can do that. They're cutting edge, though. They are cutting edge on the nutrition side of things, on just trying to be better. They're constantly trying to improve and trying to evolve, and so that's kind of what we do back home. And so I feel like growing up, I grew up in a way that we're constantly trying to get better, and find new ways to make things work. And that's what they do at Virginia Tech. And so I think it's a perfect fit. It's a place that I'm excited to go to, and I couldn't be more happy to do it with my brother going there, and another teammate in Owen McMullen.
That's really awesome. And just kind of speaking, just a little bit and further, just kind of on Virginia Tech and how excited you are for that experience, just given the amount of attention you've already received is from the Virginia Tech community and the wrestling community. What is one way, or at least a couple ways, however you kind of want to phrase it, to where you feel that you could maybe be an ambassador for building wrestling on a bit of a bigger scale? Because I think it's one of those sports that doesn't receive the amount of attention that it should. So where do you think you fall into that category, being one of those guys to help make it grow and support it more?
Yeah, I think and that's a great question. I
Thank
want to
you.
do that. Like that's one of my main goals, like is to grow this sport. And so going to Virginia Tech, I think most people go into college and they're thinking about their goals, right? And they want to do this individually and they want to do that, but I think the main thing for me is I want to build our team for one. I want to win as a team. I know we can do that. I know that the coaching staff wants to do that. So we're going to win team trophies and we're going to be in the run to win the national title every year as a team. But I think growing the sport is getting eyes on it, right? Whether that's on social media or whether that's literally in attendance numbers. But we want to get eyes to the sport. So some ways that I want to do that is to keep building my brand on social media, right? Keep putting out just positive content that people are excited to watch in the wrestling world, but also bridging out. I think another way to do that is just in the style that you wrestle, right? Scoring points, making it fun to watch. I think sometimes guys they give each other a little too much respect, or maybe they fear getting tired, but there's no fear of that. For me, I'm gonna sprint every match, try to score as many points as possible, and I think that alone is gonna bring eyes to the sport. And if we can start that movement of like, hey, this is the style that we want to wrestle, it's exciting. I think we'll see a lot of other people trying to implement that as well. And so those are some ways that I think we can grow the sport. I think RAF is going to help us a lot. And so I'm excited to stay in that partnership with them and keep putting it on the line as much as possible. And lastly, too, one thing that I wanted to mention is
For
I think
sure.
sometimes people they almost get scared of competing, or they want to sit on their ranking, or they're just a little bit afraid to lose. And I don't ever want to get that way. I want to compete as much as I can, and wrestle, right? Because when we look back someday, we won't be proud if we sat out of this tournament if we were a little banged up. It's for me, it's like let's go wrestle and let's put it on the line every chance we get.
For sure. And I think that's a really great mindset. And I get as to even sort of add onto that a little bit more. If you were to go to at least a prospective Virginia Tech student or just within the Virginia Tech student body, and you were to tell them like, hey, if you've never been to a wrestling meet before, you should come. What would be your biggest selling point as to why they should come? And I guess what are you going to do to kind of ensure that the campus community is as involved in your career as you're going to be on a day-to-day basis?
I think growing the sport within the community of Virginia Tech is going to come down to communicating. And I think we're going to do that really well. I know Coach Roby does a great job of getting fans in the seats, and they pack Castle. So we have Castle Coliseum, and it's a pretty awesome. I would say it's got to be top five in atmospheres in college wrestling. We're going to pack that place. I think we can sell it out. There's no reason we can't. I know we're in the works of making some really cool atmospheres happen and environments happen, and so we're going to try to make that something that's a possibility. And I think as far as growing the sport, and what I would say to a student or some staff around Virginia Tech is, hey, like we're working extremely hard. We're gonna have a lot of success and we're gonna have a lot of fun doing it. And I think we're gonna put on a show every time we compete. Home duels are always exciting. But I think one thing for us is we're going to put it on the line always, and we're going to be battle tested, ready to go. And I think that they come to one dual meet and they won't miss another. Hopefully, that's kind of our goal is they come to one, and then you've got a repeated person that's gonna be at every single event that we hold at Virginia Tech. So we're excited to try to communicate that. Get the word out there, keep growing the sport within the university, and bring home some trophies.
For sure, or even just kind of giving the level of stardom and the level of pressure that you might have on yourself. Obviously another athletic program that's going through some transition there. It's the football program. What was it like meeting Coach Franklin shortly after he was hired?
Yeah, that was really cool. It all came together in perfect timing. I like to say it was God's timing. We both came down from Pennsylvania, so we started that little pipeline. And so I had previously known him. I'm a big fan of him. Really, he didn't know me.
Okay.
That was until we met in person. He actually said that he followed my career. So that was a really eye opening thing and really cool to see that. But Coach Franklin's going to do amazing things for our football program. And so I think really we're on the rise in all areas that we can be in the athletic side of things at Virginia Tech. I think we're going to have a lot of success in football, and we're just going to keep trying to build it in wrestling, and they're going to go hand in hand. And Coach Franklin will be at our dual meets. I know he had already mentioned that to Coach Roby, and so I think it's going to be pretty awesome atmosphere to have football's backing, and I won't miss a home game for football.
That's awesome. And you kind of mentioned this earlier in the interview that you want your Virginia Tech relationship to be between obviously a 5 and 10 year and a much more of a longer term relationship. I get it's just kind of where you hope your career takes you. What would you say is your biggest long term goal, not just in wrestling, but overall? How do you want to be remembered in the next 5, 10, 15 years when people look back and say, when I think of Bo Bassett, what do they think of?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I try to think about that a lot, and what I want to be remembered as, and the impact that I want to have. But I think coming into Virginia Tech, the mindset now is let's have a ton of fun, let's change the sport, and let's win. Let's score some points. And so I'm excited to try to do that individually as a team, and then afterwards in the RTC as well. So if we can just keep adding to what they already have, make this a better place, and leave it better than I found it, I think that's the goal for me is to grow the sport, get eyes on it. And just leave the place better than I found it. Whether that's winning, whether that's just going to battle with these guys all the time. I'm excited to represent them as best I can and really get excited for Hokie Nation and, just give them what they deserve.
For sure. And just given that you're still like very new to the campus and very new to the community, what would you constitute when you look back on a year or so? What would you constitute as a successful freshman year in your mind? What
Yeah,
would you
I
say?
think like going in, I'm willing to do whatever they ask of me. I'm very flexible as far as weight class, and I'm gonna be the hardest worker every single time I can. Right, I'm gonna work extremely hard. I'm gonna really try to learn from everyone. There's a lot of amazing assets for me on that team that I can learn from. I'm gonna pick the brains of the coaches, and I'm gonna really try to maximize this first year. If they're ready to send me, and I'm ready to go. I'll compete if they want whatever they need. I just want to go out there and sprint and have an amazing freshman year and obviously win the NCAAs. That's everyone's goal going in,
Right,
but
of course.
also and I mean also to win as a team. So I think for me, those are some of the goals, and to really get the beginning of the journey off on the right foot.
That's awesome, and I want to get you out of here on this one. Which either opponent or potentially that you could be facing, or which team are you the most excited to compete against? Either on the season and specifically why?
Yeah, I'm really excited to compete against all the top level guys. I'm excited for those top 10 ranked guys, the matches that a lot of eyes are on, the high pressure matches, as some people would say. Um, I'm just a senior in high school, but out of the top 9 at 149 right now, I've wrestled 5 of them. And I
Okay,
have four tech falls and one major decision. And so I'm excited for those type of matches, but in a hokey singlet rather than unattached at an open or, in freestyle. I want to wrestle these guys in the hokey singlet. Maybe it's at home, maybe it's away, but I want those big time matches. I think those will be really exciting. And I think one thing too, it's kind of on the flip side. I'm really excited to compete with my brothers. In Blacksburg, I think it's going to be awesome. I've got a lot of great teammates. I'm excited to send Caleb off on the right foot. Caleb Henson it'll be his last year. He's a
for
national
sure,
champion, and
man.
so excited to be teammates with him and just go to war with all the guys.
That's awesome. Just final one for me. Is there anything else you'd like to add? Is there anything else you'd like to plug for social media? I'll give you the floor for the final question. And thank you again for your time, Bo. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I think just as far as social media, I'm on pretty much everything. Instagram, I am on Twitter, Facebook, but just Bo Bassett normally. And then on Facebook, I'm under Bassett Brothers Wrestling. So if you guys want to check us out, we're trying to post content all the time, grow the sport of wrestling, and compete as much as possible. I appreciate you for having me. And I think one thing, too, it's bigger than wrestling. I try to wrestle for my faith, for God, and to grow his kingdom.
That's awesome, man. Well, congratulations on all your success. I look forward to following your career and stay in touch, man. I appreciate you. Thanks, man.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much to Bo Bassett for his time. I really appreciate it. Also, stay tuned for a special teaser clip as well. I got a chance to talk to a very prominent former UFC champion. So be on the lookout for that very, very soon. It should be later this week, early next week, somewhere in there. But hope you guys enjoyed the interview with Bo Bassett. Wishing him all of the best of luck and the best of future success. All right. A few final reminders before we get out of here, and thanks again so much for tuning in. This has been episode 70. My name is Zain Bando. Again, a few quick reminders. Listen to Bando's Breakdowns wherever you get your podcasts. Of course, you can follow the show on social media at Bando's Breakdown. And of course, check out the show on YouTube, youtube.com/EDB Network. Please be sure to like, follow, and subscribe. Hit the notification bell. That way you don't miss a moment of any of the shows here across the network, including my own. So, for myself and everybody at the network, again, this has been another edition of Bando's Breakdowns. We will be back next week, the final episode, episode 71. It'll be the final episode of 2025 before taking a break heading into 2026. A busy 2026, in fact. And of course, stay tuned and be on the lookout for best ofs as we will chronicle all of the greatest moments that took place in a very busy year for the show. So, for everybody here, I'm Sam Bando. Hope you have a good rest of your week, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Have a good one.